Welcome into a Friday edition of Daily Face-Off Live. Tyler Remchuk, Carter Hutton with you. As always, we are streaming live on the DFO YouTube. And as always, we are a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Carter Hutton, what gets you fired up for the weekend?
Well, everything. I don't have to work, but you guys I've been just working like a dog here, every day at noon, 5 days a week. I'm out of retirement. It's been good. Honestly, no hockey this weekend. There's a big hockey tournament in town for my little kids, so we got a lot of free time. So we'll find a way to fill it, my man.
That is good living. I'm doing nothing but working this weekend. Oilers Avalanche tomorrow night. I'll be handling the pre and post game duties down at our office. That should be a hell of a hockey game for an Oilers team looking to get out of their sort of mid-season or early season slump, we should call it. We'll talk about another Pacific team that's in an early season slump coming up in a little bit. Dave Pagnotta from the Fourth Period, our insider, will join us for our big segment today as well. But before we look ahead to the weekend, let's look back to last night and a couple of teams who continue their red hot starts to the season. The Anaheim Ducks Huts are flying high, 7 goals for the second straight game. It's the first time in franchise history that the Anaheim Ducks have ever done that, and they now have their 9th win on the year, tied for the most in the West. They actually became just the 6th team in the last 40 years to score 7 or more goals in 4 of their first 13 games. The offense has been propelling this Ducks team to an unbelievable start, number 1 in the league in goals for per game. So let me ask you the question, are you buying on the Ducks? Are they legit?
Yeah, I am. I think they have the right depth of mix of some veteran leadership, some guys that can fit in. And then you look at their goaltending too. I look at Lukas Dostal. He's ready to make the jump here. I think Peter Mrazek will be a better fit in the sense of there's not a lot of pressure on him. I think Mrazek's obviously off to a tough start, but he has 2 wins. And at the end of the day, if your backup goalie can find a way to win games, it's huge for a team. And I think for Lukas Dostal, it's only going to get better. This is a guy that there was an article out the other day on Daily Faceoff just about how this isn't his coming out party. He's been here for a while. I think that is an important staple for this team moving forward. And when I look at their team and I look at the way that they're built, I think it's just a great mix of not really ripping it down to the studs. And I know we talked about this before. It's been a 7-year hiatus from the playoffs, but it looks like there's a little more sustainability when I think about this team in the Pacific, right? I think they're a team that are going to be here year after year. I don't know if they're going to make that much noise in the playoffs, but that being said, you look at Chris Kreider having 9 goals, and I think things are off to a really good start for them, Ty. If I lost you there, but
Oh, sorry, guys. I think you lost me there for a second, but I am back. It feels pretty sustainable for me too, especially because they're playing through a couple of gnarly injuries here, Huts. Like they don't have Strome, they don't have Granlund, and yet guys are picking up the offense. So if you want to talk about being sustainable, when a guy like Kreider, 9 goals on the year in 9 games for Chris Kreider. Look at Cutter Gauthier, 11 goals on the year. Like these guys aren't scoring at that rate all season. But when they do sort of start to slow down, you wonder if, does Mason McTavish start to pick up the offense? You get Strome back, you get Granlund back. Like, can guys like that pick up the slack? I absolutely think so. Like, I don't think they're going to win the Pacific. There will be a slow point, but this starts allowed them to, I don't know, I think have a month where they're not red hot and still be right in the mix.
Yeah. And again, we talked about Kreider. We talked on it. Last night was a great example of what Kreider can do, right? They're down 2-0 in that hockey game in Dallas in the tough rink to play in. Granted, Jake Ottinger's in the net. He's just coming off having a baby. So who knows? I've slept on that delivery room bed. It's not the easiest to bounce back from, but he scores a big goal off the rush on the power play, just a deceptive shot to make it 2-1. And then his next goal is where he earns his money, his net front, right? And we've seen him score a ton of goals throughout the year, but that's what he brings to the table. And I think the leadership of what him and what Trouba have been able to do here, there's a reason why they went out and got these guys. Yes, not that the New York Rangers, the way it went down is kind of a little bit of an ugly story, but these are good leaders for these guys to be around and set example of, being in tough scenarios where you're down 2-0 and their ice was tilted in that game last night in the first period. But you find a way to light a fire on these guys. Then they come back and they just keep battling. Yes, it's not your typical game, right? There's a lot of goals. Defense could have been better. Goaltending could have been better. But you found a way to win. And at the end of the day, that's what veterans help younger players do in this league, Ty.
Yeah, and that's why, again, I was critical of them. They ripped it down to the studs. So, no shit, it took them 7 years to get back here. But where I'll give Pat Verbeek some credit is, you go and get Kreider for a prayer. You go and get Jacob Trouba off the scrap heap in New York. The Rangers were basically just giving these guys away. And because you had cap space, you could find ways to work them in, but you almost make up for the fact that you make up for the mistake of ripping it down to the studs when you go out and get a bunch of really, really good veterans like that. Again, Strome not pictured here, but Troy Terry, another guy who I think, 18 months ago, it might have been easy for them to be like, you know what? We can get a first round pick and a prospect for this guy. Let's cash in. Let's do it. But I think the situation you would have been sitting in right now, if you would have done that and traded away someone like a Troy Terry, is what you would have just had another prospect in your system who probably wouldn't have been able to work his way through the mush that is the other 6 grade A young players you have. Like, again, I'll give Pat Verbeek some credit here. He went out and got some veterans, and he kind of overcame the mistakes of the regime before him. So they're legit. Will they be able to hold on? I think part of that will come from just how good the rest of the Pacific Division is, and we'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to the LA Kings. But let's head out east to another team that is off to a flying start, another bird-based team, Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins, Huts. Pat, you clocking out early on a Friday or what?
Friday, baby.
The Pittsburgh Penguins Huts are absolutely red hot. And Sidney Crosby, the kid is turning back time. He has been unbelievable, both him and Malkin. I know we've talked about this a bit, but like Sid is on pace for 104 points. Malkin's on pace for 109 points. Like they're kind of giving Father Time the big old middle finger.
Again, and this is an important factor for this team, right? I think there was a lot of hesitation on this team. I don't really think anyone outside of Pittsburgh predicted this start for them. And again, Crosby, not surprising. I guess I've just come to expect that he's just going to continue to produce and continually get the job done. But that being said, it's what the other guys have done. Carlson, the minutes that he's playing in a shutdown role. He's doing it all. Where this guy, at times, his defensive play has been so weak. And Malkin has been unbelievable for this team. Malkin is a guy that looks rejuvenated. He looks like a guy, truthfully, in my opinion, when it first started this way, I thought he was a guy to try to play himself off this team and to get traded and to be in a different situation. But the Pittsburgh Penguins keep on finding ways to win games. Yesterday on starting goalies, I hit it right. I thought the Caps would come out slow. I thought the Pens would take advantage of them. And I think this was a great example of catching a team on a back-to-back, the veteran leadership coming out strong. Now, is it sustainable? We look at their injuries. There's a lot of guys that are going to be out. Tristan Jarry is going to be out for a good amount of time. Justin Brazeau. There's a few. Noel Acciari. There's some guys that are going to be out of this lineup that is going to affect this team. Now, where do they spot it here? What I think is important is you have the veteran leadership. You have guys that are come in and sustain this in a Metro division that is wide open, right? You keep stacking up points. It looks like there's a lot more sustainability here, Ty.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to fight back on one thing you said. You said no one outside of Pittsburgh would have expected this. Huts, I don't think anyone inside of Pittsburgh. Like if you had hey, what's the first month of the season going to look like for you guys? I don't think you would have sat there and been like, 9-4-2. That sounds pretty good to me. Like they're exceeding expectations, and where I think this conversation kind of gets interesting, like for a lot of teams who should be in rebuilds but are somehow outplaying themselves a little bit. I think about Calgary last year. I'll even point a bit of a finger to like Philly right now, or even the Seattle Kraken out west. Like those are teams so I kind of go like, what the hell are you doing? Like sell off, get a couple of good draft picks. Yes, keep a few vets around and all that, but like you're in a unique spot where like you could tank and have a good shot at Gavin McKenna. And as much as Pittsburgh is in that group kind of being like, hey, they should find a way to like get a good draft pick this year. I also think if you're in the shoes of Kyle Dubas, if you're in that locker room, if you're anywhere in that organization, you're sitting there going, you know what? If we have a chance to take one more run at it with Sid and Gino and Letang, and again, with Gino being in the last year of his deal, like this might be your last chance to do it. So, while Sid and Gino are putting the middle finger to Father Time, maybe you sit there and put the middle finger to the rebuild as the Penguins and go like, maybe this will set us back another couple years down the line, but let's give our fan base, let's give these absolute legends who are probably all going to have statues outside of that arena one day, let's give them one more run at this. So it'll take 2 more months of playing well, but I would not push back on the idea of Kyle Dubas being like, fuck it, I'm going to buy.
Yeah. And I think you get a free pass as the general manager, as ownership, as that, because of the storied history that this team has, right? Because of the dynasty they were and they still are. It's like that hang on. So if there is a bit of blowback on picks that you give away to try to build, to try to have some sort of playoff run, I feel like it is all okay because of the guys we're talking about, right? I think this is a different factor when we look at, where Seattle is and even Calgary per se, right? This year, it's like, if Calgary just holds on to a bunch of players and then a few years from now, you're like, why the hell did we push when we don't have anything here? Where it's a little different when you have one of the best players of all time still producing, still humming along with the Malkin, with the factor. So it should be good. Again, I do worry about goaltending there. I just don't know if, Arthur Sheeloffs is ready to carry the mail without Tristan Jarry, and vice versa. When you start pairing those up against goalies in the East, where do they sit in your mind? I guess for me, it's just like, that'd be such a weaker team when we look at the Markstroms. And then you get over into the Atlantic when there's Bobrovsky and Vasilevsky. There's so many heavy hitters. I just don't know if it's actually sustainable, but time will tell with this older squad.
Yeah, a Jari going down too. Like I do worry about that a little bit. Like you're now pointing to Arthur Sheeloffs and being like, "Hey, can you carry the mail?" Like I see they called up the 21-year-old Marashov or whatever. Like, is he giving you quality starts? Like probably not. I don't know. I think it's a lot to ask of Sheeloffs, who again 24 years old. I know he's been like a bulk starter in the American League, Hudson. Maybe this is a good question for you, but like, is there a difference between playing 45 games in the American League and 50 games in the NHL?
Are we allowed to swear on here? But yeah, big time. It's a huge difference. Like I used to play in the American League at times, 3 games in 3 weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no problem. The amount of wear and tear and energy and higher level of play in the NHL is unsurmountable compared to the American League. So for some of these younger goalies, right, you see them early have so much success. And I feel like because it's emotion based, because you're so pumped up to play, and then all of a sudden you start to be Arthur Sheeloffs. And it's not, you got to be here every day. Like he played last night, and then I think he wakes up this morning and it's like, yes, you had a big win. You found a way to do it, but now you got to do it again. And then you got to do it again. And even for me in the NHL, when I was a backup versus when I started to play 50, when I played 50 games or 40 plus, now once every week or 10 days compared to 2 or 3 times a week is really, really hard to sustain. And that's where it's like the mental and physical aspect starts to weigh on these goalies.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about the schedule in the American League. It's a lot of loaded up weekends and then 4 days off. Like you have that recovery time, which I never really thought about. All right, before we get to Dave Pagnotta, let's do a little pass or fail here on a couple of hot button topics, I guess you could call them, around the world of hockey. Let's start with the LA Kings, though. I was not high on the LA Kings coming into this season. And I mean, I'm looking at that Anaheim team now and being like, oh boy, which one would I rather pick? But the Kings have just 6 wins in their first 15 games. Pass or fail on the Kings looking like a playoff team right now?
I think fail right now. If I just don't think they're there. And again, I don't think they can't be a playoff team. I still think there's a potential for them. They have a lot of depth, and they have, Darcy Kemper, again, is someone they really, really relied upon last year a lot, but he's 35 years old. And I start to worry, is there sustainability when you look at Kemper and you look at the way that he can play throughout the season? And again, Anton Forsberg's a guy in Ottawa, like he couldn't get it done. So I think they have depth. There is potential, but right now they're a fail for me, Ty.
Yeah, and listen, I knew this was going to happen. Like Willie in the YouTube chat says it's a biased take, Tyler. So I pulled up some of the numbers here because I wanted to, have a little bit of proof. And my feel on the Kings has just been that they aren't a bad team. Last year, they were a good regular season team, but they needed Darcy Kemper, a goalie who's now north of 35 years old. They needed him to be at a near Vezina caliber level. And it's like, okay, after his struggles in Washington, was that a one-off for Kemper, or did he truly find the fountain of youth? And was he going to be that kind of a goalie for a second straight year? I wasn't really willing to bet on that. And I think the Kings front office kind of showed that they weren't either, because they went out and got a guy in Forsberg instead of just going with it with, a cheaper goalie and just, trying to play Kemper again for 55 games or whatever. But I looked into some of the numbers. They're 10th in 5-on-5 shot attempts. They're 6th in 5-on-5 shots. So like, shot volume has not been an issue for the LA Kings, but then you look at numbers like expected goals, scoring chances. They're in the bottom third of the NHL. So like, I know some people might point to a team that's 30th in shooting percentage and be like, just a tad unlucky. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think it might be more of a struggling to get opportunities from quality areas of the ice. And like, if that's the case, like, again, shooting percentage is something a lot of people just like to point to and go, unlucky. But like, someone has to come 30th in shooting percentage this year, and it'll be a team that shoots a lot from the perimeter and doesn't get to dangerous areas. So I don't know. My big concern with them was honestly their blue line coming into the year. Now maybe my concern is something totally different, but they've been 22nd on the power play. Like, the offense hasn't been there for the LA Kings, and will it get there at some point? I don't know. They only have 42 goals on the year. That's closer to the bottom than the top when you talk about the NHL.
I think it gets a bit concerning too when you look at their home record, right? 1-4-2 at home. When like home, that was their the Roman Coliseum. You went in there, it was hell. They made it hard. They found ways to win games. And I think traditionally the LA Kings have been a high shot volume team. And personally, with my experiences, it's like those are games you dream of as a goalie, right? I remember one time playing in LA, getting a 47 save shutout. And I felt like it was an easier game than sometimes when I had 15 or 18 shots. So there is a lot of value to what you're saying in that point, because there's nights where you just keep the goalie in a rhythm, right? We've seen it so many times. If you're not getting the hard areas, if you're not making it hard on guys, it makes it easy. And I think right now the Kings are an easy team to play against, when traditionally that was the opposite. They made it hell. They made it hard. And right now they need to find a little way to change their identity. I still think it's early. I still think there's a lot of value in them. When you look at the Pacific Division, like this, is Seattle going to hold strong? But if the Ducks are legit a team now, the LA Kings have their hands full.
Yeah, I think they do. One more for you. We got Team Canada's Olympic jerseys for this year in Milan. I'll let you go first. Pass or fail on these bad boys. Do you like them? Do you hate them?
Okay. I'm torn because I love them and hate them at the same time. Okay. Because I love the texture and like the maple leaf, how it has like, it's like puffed out and the lines. I think it's great. The black, I just don't get. I don't really get the black. I think you could have kept it simple like the Red Wings do, right? I think the design is simple on the white one. I like that. The black just does nothing for me, Ty.
There's no black in the flag. Like what?
No, I know. I don't get it.
What is that? Like where are they getting the color black from? I know they do it a lot, but like for me, the best ones Canada's ever worn were at the 2010 Olympics. And maybe that's just because I have like a great sporting memory attached to it and Sidney Crosby's winner. Like if they lose that game, maybe I do hate them, but like classic, we're red and white. It's as simple as that. These get a fail from me because I hate the color black in a Team Canada jersey, but that's just whatever, small potatoes kind of stuff. Let's get to more important issues and get to our insider segment, which is brought to you by Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, or after the game. Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. Dave Pagnotta from the Fourth Period joins us, as he does every week on the show. And we kick things off by talking about a handful of teams who are off to hot starts this season. But the one we didn't touch on was the Montreal Canadiens. They got assets. They got cap space. Dave, are the Habs one of the teams that could be, itching to make a big splash here sooner rather than later?
Ty, I think they're going to be a team that's going to be looking. They're going to be lurking. They're going to be making sure, like they usually do. And Kent Hughes is great at this. He wants to know what's out there. He wants to know who's available. He's collecting all of his information. And if they make another big splash, and they made a big one in the summer, they picked up Noah Dobson from the New York Islanders. Something along those lines would not shock me for the Montreal Canadiens to be engaged in that level of conversation. As you said, a lot of cap space. For this group, they've got a lot of good young assets, plus still a pretty solid cupboard with respect to draft picks. We'll see kind of, what opportunities present themselves. But, we've touched on this in previous weeks of teams like Carolina and Utah and Ottawa being teams willing to go big game hunting. I think the Montreal Canadiens are also in that boat. They're not afraid to engage in those types of conversations. And whether it's a centerman, which seems to be the primary with respect to the 2C role. Nick Suzuki's locked in, obviously, at the top line. But if they can pull in, be it a 2C or another top 6 caliber, likely for the second line scoring winger, I wouldn't be surprised if they go in that direction. So we'll see kind of where they go, but 0% surprise if the Montreal Canadiens engage in big discussions later on this season, because again, they have the financial flexibility. They've got the cupboard to move out some assets and a willingness to continue to add to this group, not just for this season, but for years to come.
Well, Dave, obviously, I think the beauty of this team is, too, if you add something, it doesn't really disrupt everything, right? There's so many contracts in place where it seems sustainable. And now on the other end of it, when I look at Nashville, a team that's just been, when we look back at free agency a few years ago, it's been unbelievable, right? It was that free agency Ty and I talked about this the other day. Like, hey, wow, they won free agency because they're the best team on paper. Then come to see it, we see Ryan O'Reilly last night talking about he can't make a 6-foot pass. It's tough to see. What is the plan there in Nashville? Is there guys and some veterans that start getting moved out?
They're obviously trying to figure it out to see exactly what the direction of this team is. It's still early. They don't want to press any panic buttons. But yeah, teams are starting to circle a little bit and are curious to see, can they get into the Ryan O'Reilly sweepstakes, which I anticipate to happen later on in the season. He's got another year on his contract. He doesn't have any no trade protection, but unofficially he does. They're going to bring him an opportunity that is favorable for him. At the same time, they've got to maximize their return. But they have some other pieces. And look, I'm with you guys. I thought they brought in Marchessault, they brought in Stamkos, they brought in Brady Shea on that back end. I thought they'd be able to, make some noise and be part of the consistent playoff discussion. Obviously, just hasn't worked. And depending how this season goes, if it continues to go in this direction and they continue to follow this trend, I think there are going to be a number of questions. One, what are they going to do behind the bench with Andrew Brunette? Two, is it Ryan O'Reilly? We've obviously heard the Stamkos discussion already. And with respect to Stammer, I don't think anything is imminent. I don't think anything is close there. And I've mentioned this a few times this week. But I think there's a willingness to explore from his side. And yes, he likes it there. His family likes it there. Everybody likes it there. But I think there's a willingness to explore the possibility of joining a top-tier contender for the duration of his term of his contract. He's got 2 years after this one. But then it's finding the options. Then it's figuring out how much Nashville wants to eat on that contract because no one's taking him at full pop at $8 million cap hit. So that's another variable in place. You see Saros. Would they be dangerous enough to explore that possibility between the pipes? Probably more of an off-season type of situation with respect to that if they pursue that seriously. But I think right now for Nashville, it's let's see if we can get through this next month. If we can get through November and make a little bit of an incline, then all right, let's wait this out even further. If not, if it's kind of status quo, then I think those conversations across the board start to pick up. Doesn't mean necessarily we'll start to see fireworks in end of November and beginning of December, but it does start to get the ball rolling even faster with respect to potential moves later in the season out of Nashville.
The Stamkos thing is interesting and something that complicates this. Jeff Merrick brought it up earlier in the week with us, but the new owner there as well. I guess it's hard to know what he's thinking as a relatively new owner. There's no track record to go back on, but can Barry Trotz go to him and be like, hey, I know you just cut a massive check for Steven Stamkos. Can we pay him $4 million to not play for us the next 2 years? We just signed UC Saros to a long-term deal. Are you cool if I just take that money and instantly ship it out? Who knows how that owner would feel if Barry Trotz comes asking these kind of questions?
I think, obviously everybody wants to win, and that includes ownership. They want to be in a position where they're going to, have their team succeed. But if it's not working, and this team is not deep enough, so if it's not working, how do you fix it? Do you have to go through a rebuild? Can you go through a retool of sorts? I guess it really depends on the type of return you're going to get for some of these assets. But, it's at the same time, you also have to kind of just man up and be like, look, it didn't work. We've made mistakes. We thought these were the right moves. It just hasn't connected for whatever the reason. And we need to kind of clean this up before it gets really, really ugly. So there are some internal debates and internal questions that some of these individuals have to ask themselves. But, sometimes you kind of got to just bite down and accept the fate and try to fix it and try to move forward by doing other right decisions in order to clean up whatever mess has been made, even if it's inadvertent.
Sorry, yeah, that's always the point, right? Teams are trying to do their best, right? What you forecast and what happens out, it doesn't always work that way, right? And again, now I want to switch over to Toronto. The David Kampf situation is a very interesting one. I'm a guy, I played with Patrick Berglund. He walked away from $12.5 million. So this is not unique to me, but just a unique case for the Leafs here. What happened? How much do you know about the story about him and his contract being terminated?
Well, it sounds like an option with respect to what they're going to do here. Now, Toronto's been trying to move Kampf since the summer. It was Kampf, it was Yarncroc, it was Nick Robertson, the usual suspects that even go back to last season. But Treliving has been looking around for a while. The issue that I've gotten, and the sense that I've gotten, that is the issue, is that he hasn't really wanted to just give these guys away, right? Like he hasn't just wanted to be like, here, I'll just take a 7th round pick and let's call it a day. He's wanted some decent type of asset coming back for whatever the reason. Now, I think in this situation, because it's gotten this ugly, maybe that's the route they take. They can trade him for whatever, get a 6th round pick or something like that and call it. But talking to other teams around the league over the last several months, yeah, they know they're available, but Toronto has had a decent price in mind in order to move out some of these pieces. And teams obviously haven't been willing to pay, and that's why they're still there. Now, because things have gotten to this point with camp, and it's not like, I mean, they just have too many people. Like there's way too many guys in that bottom 6, and they've needed to move guys out. Like they didn't want to necessarily send Easton Cowan down to the AHL, but I mean, he doesn't have to clear waivers. It's an easy, kind of move for them financially. So I think with the Leafs, they're going to continue to see what's going on here. But it seems like, if we don't get a resolution today or by the end of the weekend, that they'll just rip it up and say, all right, it hasn't worked. We'll save the money. Go out there and find a new deal somewhere else.
Interesting. One more team I want to touch on. It's the team we led our show with in the Anaheim Ducks. Similar situation to Montreal, you think, where Pat Verbeek would like to maybe do something big? Or do you think they're looking at this year and being like, hey, however it goes, like gravy. Like if we make the playoffs, awesome, ahead of schedule. Or do they want to get aggressive?
Situationally aggressive. I think this is kind of like Montreal was, say last year, where they made some headway. They stayed, on top of what the options are going to be, and then pounce in the summer, which has been really Montreal's MO for the last few years. All of their major deals, for the most part, Dobson, Doc, Newhook, Laine, those have been in the offseason. So I think for Anaheim, they really obviously like what's going on there. With the group that they've got, with Q behind the bench, Leo Carlson has been fantastic. Cutter Gauthier has been great. A lot of their younger guys are really producing. And by the way, those two guys need contracts, so that'll eat a big chunk of their cap moving forward. But they still have so much more cap space and flexibility that they can add. So I think this is going to be another scenario where, not necessarily lurking in the weeds, but lurking in the shadows. It would be how I would describe the Ducks and Pat Verbeek. If something kind of pops up and it's advantageous for them to take advantage of now, I think they'd explore that in terms of bringing in a big fish. Otherwise, they'll continue to kind of just take their notes, keep tabs on things, and then maybe pounce in the summer. But again, if the opportunity arises for them to make an impact addition, and I think that's where they're at right now, this is another team with assets, both from a prospect side of things and draft capital, that they can move in order to bring in that big trophy kind of player to take advantage of. Obviously, to a certain extent, they've done that with Kreider and Trouba over the last couple of years. But they're looking higher, they're looking top tier, and if one of those pieces become available, they'll at least be part of the discussion. From everything I've been reading,
just go get another Ranger, go get Panarin. I see someone put that in our YouTube chat. There you go, easy. Throw another high-end winger into the mix.
Yeah, and he said yesterday he doesn't know what the future still holds for him, but he's just pissed off that his game is kind of off right now. So he wants to focus on that. But I mean, maybe. Look, they'll have the money. They'll have the money to do it. Panarin's looking for midterm, by the sounds of things, 4, 5, 6 years, which at 34, a little aggressive. But we'll see kind of where things end up with him in New York. That's another situation where they're in wait and see mode before they start to make any potential big moves, be it to add or to subtract/retool.
Yeah, like no one's doing anything crazy. I mean, in all likelihood before the new year, but especially before American Thanksgiving, that kind of artificial cutoff line we view it as is like, okay, you kind of know what you are by the end of November, and you probably act on it January, February, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that over the years has been a combination of let's see exactly what we have, and we're willing to wait it out because we don't have the cap space to act anytime sooner. A lot of teams do now, and a lot of teams will next season. So I think and this is why there's a lot of chatter right now, because I think there's more of a willingness to act sooner than later, even with respect to that cutoff. But if you hit the dozen game mark and you don't know what you've got already, might be a little internal problem there. I think teams understand what they've got within that 10, 12, 15 game mark. Obviously, U.S. Thanksgiving provides that extra cushion, but I think because of that cap flexibility that a lot of teams have now, they don't necessarily have to wait. But, it's a lot easier to start making moves when you're approaching deadlines, which is why we see so much activity once January hits.
Yeah. All right. We kept you long, but appreciate your time, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
You got it, boys. See ya.
Moving along, daily face-off inbox question, #AskDFO. Huts, I'm going to throw one your way from last night. Got our first match penalty of the season, so the Department of Player Safety cracks their knuckles and takes a look at this hit from Tyler Pitlick on Jalen Chatfield. They're deeming it, I believe, Michael Russo had a tweet that he doesn't think there's a hearing coming. I think that's insane. I think the first contact, if it's not right with the chin, it's pretty high up. Like, I thought this was an easy one to just slap a game at a guy.
Yeah, I thought this was one that was going to be suspended. I think he hit him right on the chin. As you watch here, yes, Chatfield's getting the puck up ice. He's coming in. His head looks like the first point of contact. Yes, his shoulder is going to go through the center of his chest. He still finishes the check, but in principle, this is what we're trying to protect from, right? This is a guy in a bit of a defensive position. He's making a play up ice. And, this could be like a career-ending hit, in my opinion. So I think I wish this would be suspendable just from the player side and keeping guys safe, Ty.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Let's get to our daily bets for the day, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I need a win to close out the week because nothing has been going my way. Is Pat messing with you here, Huts? I thought you had a win last night.
No, not last night. The night before, I lost last night. I had under 6, and the score in the Minnesota-Carolina game was like 3-2 in the first period. It was just a gross bet by me. I misread that one by a mile.
I forgot you went under, not over. Pat, you're coming off a loss too, so we're all looking to get into shape here heading into the weekend.
Yeah, not great. I mean, I should know better than to bet over 6.5. That's usually my line, but I went against it. This is just a year I'm trying to figure out what my strategy is still.
Yeah, we don't know what we are as bettors until American Thanksgiving, so we got some time to figure it out. I'm going to stick with the shot props here. I'm not rushing into a rebuild or anything like that. Connor Bedard 3, Dylan Larkin 3. Both their lines are set at 3.5, but I'm going to knock that down a little bit, get them at plus 203. They've each hit this in 9 of 14 games so far this season. Bedard's been hitting that 4+ mark pretty consistently, so playing these two together, plus 203, good price tag, and hopefully make back some of the money I lost throughout the week. Pat, what do you like?
I laughed at that bet, Ty, because you didn't hit the 2 shots yesterday, so might as well go for 3 today. But you got some studs in there at least. I got the Blackhawks money line versus Calgary. They beat up on Vancouver the other day. The Blackhawks having a good season. Bedard's having a pretty good run right now. He seems to be on fire. So at plus 130, I'm just throwing darts right now at this point. What about you, Carter?
You know what? I'm going to go with Patrick Kane anytime point. He's at plus 150 for 1 point against the Rangers tonight. I just think Patrick Kane is just going to generate coming back in the lineup. So let's look for him to get a point. I hit with the Bedard one this week. Let's win this one. If we don't, let's just not even talk about it Monday. Just move on to our next bets.
Patrick Kane, 5 points in 5 games this year so far for the Detroit Red Wings, off to a pretty decent start. And yeah, you mentioned it, playing against the Rangers. So I know he wasn't there for long, but we still get that little bit of a revenge game angle. I'm just looking, where do the Rangers rank on their penalty kill? Because Kane's a guy who, if he's going to do damage, he's probably going to find a way to do it on the power play. Okay, they're top 10 in PK. Maybe I like it a little bit less. But anyways, we'll go to garbage time, Huts, and tough start out in Niagara as their mascot coming onto the ice just didn't see the net. I don't even know what else to say about this. That's tough. I mean, professional mascots, when we're talking in the show, Huts, they're making good money. If you got to go, if you're getting home from a night of being Wild Wing in Anaheim and, you got some bruised ribs, you can sleep pretty good. The poor guy in Niagara is probably making $15 an hour here. This just sucks. He's got to go do his regular job the next day and he's all banged up.
And he goes in just full tilt. I'd assume that there's just some lack of view that he can't see in front of him just at eye level or something, because he hits that net real hard, full stride. So I feel I've seen too many of these things happen, right? Just funny, guys doing the national anthem and slipping and different stuff. And it reminds me of a story when I was playing in Kraft Hockeyville, Ty. We're at the Pittsburgh Penguins Arena, and we're playing the Pens. So we travel there, and it's a different rink, right? You're playing in a smaller barn. And where we come out of the chute, it's like straight onto the ice. So I'm starting, and I go to jump on the ice, but I don't realize they've got a mat out now because they're going to do ceremonial puck drop. So I take my first step on the mat, slide head first, and I'm the first player to get on the ice. The Pens haven't come out yet, to about 2,000 people laughing at me. And then the first goal goes in, first shot of the game. So that was a tough start to that season for the St. Louis Blues for me.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. What do you, this is always a funny thing because people think that like every mascot in professional sports is just like some kid from the marketing department who they make put on the suit. Highest paid mascot in North American sports is the mascot in Denver, Rocky the Mountain Lion. He makes $625,000 a year, Huts.
Jesus, I got to get off this mic and get to work, buddy. I'll wear the head for that kind of dough.
Yeah, there's like it's a very interesting thing. If people are looking for a way to pass the time, just start Googling about how mascots become mascots. Like, I think the guy in Edmonton was like down in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton in the Penguins AHL team. Then he got like 6 figures to come to the Oilers, and he's Hunter now. But like, man, they make like surprisingly good money being mascots. If you get to the pro level, I think there's a pretty big leap there.
That's insane. I did it a few times. My mom was a lifer at the Royal Bank, RBC, and she would make me dress up as Leo the Lion. That was like their character sometimes. So I would go to an event here when I was young, and they'd pay me $40 and I would do it. But I always laughed because there was a lady that held it, and she was like just on me all like, you do not talk. When you put that helmet on, you are Leo the Lion. So she was fully into character. So I've dabbled with the mascot. So I don't know if I could do it full time, but I have a past.
If you throw that kind of money at me, I'll do anything in that mascot suit. Anyways, that's a wrap on today's edition of the show. Big shout out to Dave Pagnotta from the Fourth Period for swinging by and joining us again. Everybody in the YouTube, great stuff. We will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.